Let's begin with this first question. The question says, what is the slope of the line in the standard XY coordinate plane that contains the points 6, -1 and 4, 3? Now, slope is something that you're probably familiar with from your classes. We use the letter M to denote slope. And if you're given two ordered pairs, this is the formula that you've seen probably. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. This is a definite formula that you must know before you walk into the ACT test. Now, the most common mistake that I've seen throughout the years is that students will get their formula confused. The y's have to go on top and the x's are on the bottom. And a lot of times students do get that backwards. So let's talk about a way to help you remember it. You're familiar that slope is also known as rise over run. I'll tell my students that you rise out of bed before you run to start your day. So if I think about my axes and I think about the y-axis and the x-axis, think about the y-axis. Y rises high. So the y is the one that rises and falls. That's why your y's are on top. But the x-axis, you just can run along that x-axis. So that's why the run, which is the x, is on the bottom. So that might help you to remember your formula. So let's take a look at this over here. You've got the 2 points, 6, -1, and 4, 3. Another thing that's really helpful is because there is a minus or a subtract in between the two letters or numbers, you want to maybe write that word minus because it can help with your negative mistakes that you might make. So we're going to say 3, because y's are on top, 3 minus a -1. See how that helps? 3 minus a -1. And then 4 minus 6. And so when I do that, that gives me 4 on top, -2 on the bottom, and of course we'll reduce, and the answer is A. Okay, let's take a look at number 21. It says, what is the slope of the line passing through the points -1, 4, and 2, -1? All right, I'm going to write that word minus so that I can be careful with my signs. Remember the formula. Your y's are on top, your x's are on the bottom. So these y's, -1 minus 4, then 2 minus -1, 2 minus -1. So I get -5 on top, and 2 wrongs make a right, but only in math class. And so -5 over 3 is -5/3, or A. Okay, let's take a look at number 12. On number 12, you could maybe pause the video and try it for yourself and check with me. On this particular time, they give us the two ordered pairs, 0, 3, and 9, 4. So the slope, and again, if that helps you with that, put that word minus right there so that I will say y's on top, 4 minus 3, and then 9 minus 0. And you should have gotten 1/9, which is answer F. Okay, here's another way that they ask for slope, but you might not recognize it. It gives us the population of Northtown on January 1, 2001 through 2007, and it's shown in this table. The question says, what is the average yearly change? Well, that's just another word for slope, but when you see that it's going from January the 1st, 2003 to January 1st, 2005, you might think that's strange. Well, let's think about it though. If I'm going from January of 2003, I'm talking about that data. If I'm going from 2005, I'm talking about this data. So when you look at that, maybe something in your mind would think, you know what, I could really turn that into two ordered pairs. 2003, 1726 2005, 1972 is the population. So you actually do end up with two ordered pairs, so to speak. So let's use our formula. And the y's are on top. So 1972 minus 1726 over 2005 minus 2003. All right, put that in your calculator really quickly, and you get 246 over 2, which is 123, or answer C. Okay, let's take a look at number 16. Now it's asking for slope again, but they give us the equation of a line. So let's go back and recall the equation of a line. Y equals mx plus b. This is standard form. When you have a line in this form, this right here, what's in front of x, that's m. Remember, that's our slope. That's our rise over our run. This number right here is your y-intercept. It's where you cross the y-axis. Intercept means to cross. Think about maybe in football. If there's an interception, it's because the other guy crossed the path and got the football instead. So if I'm going to get this in the correct form, I need to solve it for y. I need y all by itself to be in the correct form. So then I'm going to subtract 11x. Subtract 11x from both sides. Bring down your 6y equals, okay, these people aren't friends, so we can't force them together. They're not like terms. Also, notice you want your x to be first. So negative, keep your face with your body, negative 11x plus 3. Now, divide all the people by 6. You got to be fair. Divide everybody by 6. So y equals negative 11 over 6x plus 1/2. And we already said the number in front of x, well, that's my slope. So G is my answer. All right, let's take a look at number 58. Now, this one is number 58, and it could seem intimidating, but it's really not if you read the question. Sometimes they will put some questions at the end of the test that really aren't as bad as you would think they would be. So you want to make sure you get to see every question, even if you have to, towards the end, kind of skim and see which ones you think are doable. Number 58 says, and it gives us these lines right here, and it basically says which will result in a negative slope. So looking at those lines, which ones would have a negative slope? Well, let's just start with the first one. It says ax plus by is equal to c. Well, remember, if you're going to be in the correct form, you have to be solved for y. So let's do that. Subtract ax from both sides. So bring down your by equals, right here, they're not like terms, so don't force them together, ax plus c, because remember, we want the x term first. We're trying to get it in y equals mx plus b form. Divide by b, divide by b, and when I do, I can see that slope is negative. So definitely Roman numeral 1. So it's not G and it's not H. Okay, let's take a look at Roman numeral 2 line. It says ax minus by is equal to c. And again, I need to solve it for y. It needs to be all by itself so that it can be in the correct form to look and tell. Subtract ax, subtract ax. That's going to bring down and bring your face with your body. Negative by equals negative ax plus c. Divide everybody by negative b, and look right here. A negative divided by a negative is going to be a positive slope, so that's not okay. So Roman numeral 2 is no, so it can't be that one. All right, let's take a look at Roman numeral 3 and see what it has to do for us. It says negative ax minus by is equal to c. Add your x term over. So bring your face with your body. Negative by equals ax plus c. And sure enough, when you divide by that negative b, you're going to get a negative slope. So yes, for Roman numeral 3 as well. And the answer is K. All right, let's take a look at number 17. Now, I'm going to start a section of lines where we talk about parallel and perpendicular. So, on this it says, what is the slope of a line parallel to this line? Remember that parallel lines have the same slope. Parallel lines, the slope is the same. If you even think about parallel lines, those are lines that never cross, maybe like railroad tracks. It kind of makes sense that they would have that same rise and run. So this line right here is already in y equals mx plus b form. So I can just look and see what that slope is and then know that mine has to be the very same. So it's answer E, just like that. Okay, let's take a look at this one. Number 16. Again, it says which of the following lines goes through this point and is parallel. So that means we're going to be the same. This line is already in the correct form, so I can tell that his slope is negative 5. So my slope has to be the same as negative 5, which means it's not H or J. So if anything else, I've got it down to a 50-50 guess. Now, I have to think about going through the point 0, 2. 0, 2 is right here. That's the ordered pair 0, 2. That's basically my y-intercept, where I cross the y-axis. So that answer is G. If you weren't sure, though, take an educated guess, and since that's a positive 2, maybe you would have put that positive 2 right there. All right, let's take a look at the next one. And on this one, why don't you pause the video and try for yourself and see and check with me. All right, it says, what is the slope of a line that's parallel to this line? Well, I need to get this line in the correct form, because if it's in the form y equals mx plus b, then I can look and see what his slope is. So subtract your x over. So that gives me 5y equals negative x plus 9. Remember, you want your x term first, and you want to keep the signs with the people. All right, divide by 5 to everyone. And so I have y equals, here is another place that sometimes people make mistakes. So you see that's an understood 1 right there. So therefore, it's going to be negative 1 over 5 for your slope, negative 1/5. And if you're parallel, you have to be the same as this one. So the answer is G. All right, let's look at number 47. And again, this is a question 47, but it's not a difficult 47 if you remember about perpendicular lines. So let's think about perpendicular lines. While parallel lines are the same slope, perpendicular lines, their slopes are what we call negative reciprocals. Now, what does that mean? Negative means to negate or be the opposite. Like if I'm positive, I'm going to negate it and make it negative. But if I'm negative, I'm going to negate it and that turns it back to positive. Reciprocal means to flip. So perpendicular lines are negative reciprocals, which means you take the opposite sign and you flip it. So here's a way to think about it. You're going to op and flop. So perpendicular lines, you do the op and flop. So let's get this line in the correct form. So I need to just basically divide everybody by 3. So I have y equals 4/3 x plus 2/3. But what I'm really interested in is that slope. His slope is 4/3. And if I'm perpendicular, my slope is going to be the opposite, so negative, and tump him over, flip that, so 4/3 becomes 3/4, and my answer is B. So if you know that little piece of information, this question 47 is not so bad. All right, let's take a look at 48. Okay, there are a couple things here I think that can help us rule out some answers. First of all, it says they're parallel. That means they have to have the same slope. The two lines that they give us are generically y equals mx plus b and y equals mx plus b. We know that these are the slopes. Because we're parallel, they have to be the same. That means yes for Roman numeral 3 and no for Roman numeral 4. So if it helps you could start to eliminate some of your answers. I know that 3 has to be true. So it is going to have to be G, H, or J. So that kind of helps us. All right, now it says they're not coincident. That means they're not the same line. In other words, it's not the line on top of itself. They're two separate parallel lines. Well, if I think about my y-axis and my y-intercept, it's got to have two separate y-intercepts because it's not the same line on top of itself. So therefore, the b values would have to be different. They cannot be the same. So 2 and 3, those are the two things that have to be true. Now that one was a little bit more difficult, but I definitely think some of you can get that, and some of you guys would be able to maybe eliminate some answers to get your guessing better as well. All right, now we're going to switch to a part of the questions where you're looking at the graphs of the lines. Remember that y equals mx plus b is our form of our line, where m is our slope and b is our intercept. All right, well, this question just wants the slope. You got a couple options here. I think the easiest thing, well, I say that, the easiest thing is whatever your mind thought was the easiest thing. But for me, my mind wants to just count rise over run. Remember that you rise out of bed and then you run to start your day. But in this question, we did not rise out of bed. We fell out of bed and then we ran to start our day. So this is a negative slope because you're skiing downhill. So I already know it has to be negative. All right, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to count that I fell down 1, 2, 3 steps and I ran over 2 steps. So down 3 and over 2. So that makes my answer F. Now, that's the way my mind saw it and some of yours too. But another thing, just use your ordered pairs because your mind might have said, hey, let's take those two ordered pairs and do the formula. And you certainly could have done that and gotten the very same answer. And you would have gotten -3/2. Okay, let's take a look at this one. It says, what is the best estimate for the slope of this line? Well, first of all, it's skiing downhill. So since it's skiing down the slope, downhill, it's got to be negative. So it has to be F or G. So now we just have to think, do we rise or actually fall out of bed 5 and run 1? Or does it look more like we fell out of bed 1 and we ran over 5? And it certainly looks like you would have fallen out of bed 1 and run over 5. So the answer is G. This right here would be really steep. This would say I would have fallen 5 and just run over 1. And it would have been something much, much steeper. Okay, let's take a look at number 24. Why don't you guys pause the video and try this one for yourself? Okay, the question says, which of these is this line? Well, I know my y-intercept is positive 2. So it's got to be F, H, or K. The next thing is, this is a negative slope. I'm skiing downhill, so it can't be K. So I've got it down to a 50-50 guess. This is another one of those situations where I fall out of bed and then run to start my day. I fell 2 and ran 3. So it's negative 2/3, which is H. But if you are more comfortable using your slope formula, you can certainly do that as well and get negative 2/3. Okay, let's look at number 19. And again, pause the video and try this one for yourself. It says, what is the equation of this line right here? I'm starting at 4, so it would have to be B or C. And it's skiing downhill, so it has to be the negative slope, negative 2x plus 4. You know, on the ACT, you're trying to find the right answer, but you realize to get rid of all the wrong answers is another way to get to the right answer. All right, let's look at this 47. Notice there have been several questions that have been in the 40s, but aren't too terrible if you kind of have a good grasp on this. It says, which of the following is the graph of this right here? It says A is positive and B is positive. That's telling me my slope is positive and my y-intercept is positive. So if my slope is positive, I've got to be skiing up the hill. So it can't be that one because he's skiing downhill. Can't be that one because he's skiing downhill. Can't be this one because he's skiing downhill. So it has to be A or D. But the y-intercept is also positive, so it must be A because that's a negative intercept, so it can't be that one. All right, let's take a look at number 45. Another one in the 40s again. It says, which of the following of these lines is this area right here? Okay, well, let's take a look. My intercept is at A. So I need, for my y equals mx plus b line, my intercept is A. So not this one. All right, I realize I'm skiing down the hill, so I have to have a negative slope, so it can't be that one. Now, let's think about what this slope is. So I'm going to fall out of bed and then run to start my day. So I fell that much distance. We fell A and we ran over B. So it's negative A over B. So it's got to be A or B. Now here's another concept, and this is good because it kind of reminds you of something. Do you see how this is a shaded problem? And it's shaded below or underneath. When you're shaded below, it's less than. Less than shades below the line. If it had been greater than, it would have been shaded on top or above the line. Last one, number 24. The cost of a hotel room in Y dollars based on the rating X provided by a travel agency is modeled by this linear equation. So there's my Y equals mx plus b line. The question says, which of the following describes the rate of change? Remember that problem with the chart and it asked for the rate of change from January the 1st, like 2003 to 2005, and we said rate of change is just slope. So this is my slope right here. It's $2.34 over 1. So remember that slope is rise over run. So the 234 is my rise and the 1 is my run. Okay, remember rise is the y. Run across the line, is your x. So they're telling me that this is the y and this is the x. Y is the dollars. So that's your money. X is the rate. So this is my rate. So just come over here and see which one of those describes $2.34 for the rate, for the money for every one that the rate increases. If you look, F is the only one that has $2.34. See, these have got 67. That's got 67. That's $1 and that's $1. So it has to be F. If you'd like more help and practice with ACT math prep content, be sure to check out the other videos on my channel. Remember to like and subscribe if you found this video to be helpful. Also, maybe tell a friend. See you later.